Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. I think this is number 36, and this one is a little different. It's all about DCC sound. The first part of it is going to be a speaker test. I'm going to use a Class 56 decoder, which is actually a Zimo MX645, and I am going to, and it has in it Paul Chetter's Class 56 sounds. I think that's right, it's from Digitrains, and I think most of his Zimo stuff from Digitrains, most of the stuff from Digitrains in Zimo is Paul Chetter's. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm going to be doing is testing some loudspeakers which I have accumulated to try things out. I'm looking for loudspeakers that will fit in locos, and the loudspeakers are already in some kind of enclosure. I find it a bit of a bore and quite difficult to build my own loudspeaker enclosures, so unless I absolutely have to, I'm not going to bother. So without further ado, we'll start the tests, and after the tests then we'll have a look at a Hornby TTS decoder, which is for my Class 31, which you can see sitting in front of you, and we'll be fitting that and testing it. So on with the sound test, on with the speaker test. Okay, this is the first speaker. I'm not going to tell you what it is or what it looks like. I'm just going to let you listen to it. For each speaker I'll do this, and then we'll look at the speaker and I'll measure it for you and show you what it is, tell you who it comes from, and I'll always play the same sounds. We'll do an engine start, a tick over, blow a couple of horns, engine stop. I'm also positioning the speaker approximately where it will be in the unit, this being a Class 56, and there is room in the 56 for all the speakers I'm going to show you, I hope. Now this speaker here we have is actually 30 by 15 millimeters, and it is a bass reflex unit, 8 ohms, 2 watt, and it's from Digitrains. Don't know the price, about 7 or 8 quid I think. Anyway, that's the first one. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here's another speaker, same procedure. Okay, that speaker looks almost identical to the last one. It isn't, as you can see, it's got nothing written on the back. But that speaker comes from an eBay supplier, who I will put a link to at the bottom. I'll just put a link to one of his speakers, and then you can look in his see other items to see what else he does, and you'll find all the speakers I've used. And I only know him as Richard, and we've actually been communicating via Gmail, and he asked me to let him know what I thought of his speakers, and I said I can do better than that. I can actually do a comparison of those and maybe one or two other makes, and put them on my YouTube channel. So this is what I'm doing. This speaker again is identical to the last one. 30mm. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing there. It's 30mm by 15mm. The case almost looks identical. Obviously they're not totally identical. Judge for yourself whether you think it's any different to the last one or not. We'll now go on to another speaker. Okay, here we have speaker number 3. Now this is a very different size speaker. I'll show you what it is. It's actually much smaller. It's still a ported bass reflex. The port is just there, you can see it. But this speaker is get attracted, is about 10mm. It's about 14mm by 30, but in a significantly smaller case. Okay, that also comes from the same eBay supplier. So we'll go for another speaker now, and another one. Okay, and this one is yet another bass reflex speaker, but this time it's big. It'll still fit in a 56, The size this time is about 22 by 37. 22 by 37. Obviously the case is bigger. Again, a base reflex. There's the port, and I like it. I don't know about you. Anyway, onwards and upwards, we'll go for another one. And another speaker. Okay, this one should be a bit of a surprise, although it may not be to everybody. This is some kind of iPhone speaker. I have no idea which. It is 8 ohm apparently. It measures around about that, so I have to say it's a bit quiet, but could work well in some smaller locos where you've got not much space. I'm sure that this piece can be cut off without any difficulty, so and if it does make a hole, you just fill it. So there's yet another kind of speaker. Also came from the eBay supplier. He actually sent me this one without me actually paying for it, but I do find it a little bit quiet perhaps, but not necessarily too bad. So onwards. And our last speaker for today. And what is this speaker? It's a sugar cube, and I am so impressed by these speakers. Okay, that wasn't as loud as some of the bigger speakers we've tried, but it is an amazing all-round performer when you consider its size. And what we need to consider is that you could mount that in the body of that Class 56 and retain the fans, and it would still produce pretty good sound. I really did that for comparison, because I wouldn't actually use a Sugar Cube speaker unless I had no choice. And I probably will have no choice when it comes to putting sound into Class 08s, and even maybe a Class 20, because there's just very little room in both. But anyway, that's not the point of this comparison. So what I'll do now is I'll line up all the speakers that we've actually looked at, just go through them again and tell you what I thought of them. Okay then, here we have the 6 speakers that I tested. We have the DCC Supplies bass reflex, 8 ohm. In fact, they're all 8 ohms, so I won't keep saying that. We have the eBay supplier, 8 ohm, of the same size as the DCC Supplies. We have a smaller one from the same eBay supplier. We have a larger one from the same eBay supplier, and I also have an iPhone speaker, which he sent me gratis when I said I'd try some out. And lastly, the Sugar Cube. Richard from eBay did send me one more speaker, but unfortunately it isn't in its own enclosure, so it would mean that I would actually have to build an enclosure for it. And that happens to be one of the very things I'm trying to avoid doing. I don't want to build enclosures for speakers unless I absolutely have to, because there's no other choice. So what I want is a speaker that is already in an enclosure, and then find a way of fitting it into the loco, and I'll change the size of the speaker if I can't fit it in the loco. Okay, which ones do I like the best? Well, of these two, the DCC Supplies and the eBay, they should sound the same. I thought the eBay one sounded slightly better. Don't know why. Perhaps the drive units are different in some way. The bass ports look about the same size, but I just found that the eBay one, to my ears, and hopefully you can hear the difference as well, sounded a little better. I was surprised at this one. It was very loud, but that's probably because it's got a lot more top end, being a smaller speaker compared to the amount of bass that it's got. And it did suffer from a little less bass, probably quite a bit less bass. However, certainly more bass than I've heard from many speakers. This one, the biggest of the lot, was probably my favourite of the whole lot of speakers. It really did sound very nice. I'm going to listen again to the recordings of this one and this one, because I thought I heard something from this one that was an authentic sound, that it brought out better than any of the others. But I need to have another listen. It was something to do with the shutdown sequence, and there seemed to be a sound there that the others didn't pick up. The eBay speaker, I thought, sorry, eBay speaker, the iPhone speaker I thought was pretty awful, and I won't be considering iPhone speakers in the future. I know Dave Howarth tried an iPhone 6 speaker in his Class 37 a few days ago, and he put up a video and he wasn't impressed, and I have to say I'm not either. And lastly, the Sugar Cube. If you're short of space, these are brilliant. They won't give you the same amount of bass as this one or this one, probably not even the same amount as this one, but damn good speakers nevertheless. And I would certainly use a Sugar Cube if I could get nothing else in, because they do come with their own housing, their own enclosure. This one is quite a large enclosure. Some of the Sugar Cube speakers enclosures can be a lot smaller than that. There are also Sugar Cube speakers available in enclosures about the size of this in terms of area, and I'm now going to try and see if I can pick up a couple of those and see what I think, because they certainly ought to be very good speakers. The bigger the case, the better the bass, you would assume, but I need to try it to find out. Okay, what I'm going to do now is continue to fit the speaker into my class 56 loco, and if I can get that one in, that's the one I'm going for. I've also got my class 31, and for that I have this, which is the Hornby decoder and speaker, the TTS version for the class 31. And if I get a chance, I'm going to try and look at fitting that into my class 31 during this same video and try and put something up for that. I'll also show you what I think are good things and what I think are bad things about the TTS sound decoders and the way they're packaged, and whatever I can do I will put up later in this video before I post it. I only posted a video the day before yesterday, so this is very close to it, and I don't need to post one that quickly. So I will be back in this video soon with some more updates. And finally, on these tests, before we actually install anything, this is the Hornby TTS Class 31 decoder with its supplied speaker in the same conditions as I've just done all the other speaker tests. So let's just see what it sounds like. I know that's not a Class 31 body, but I can't put the Class 31 body down there simply because it's hardwired to the chassis, as you may have seen in a previous video. So we'll do it with the 56 body just as we did before. Same test, you can have a listen. That last test sequence was an example of what the TTS decoders can be capable of. There were two different startups there. One was the first one was the warm start, where the engine started immediately. The second one was a typical cold start of a really ancient style of diesel engine, where it fought every way, which way to try not to start. It backfired and it did all sorts of things. But it started in the end. So anyway, that was just a quick test, which is probably what I'm going to put in my 31 as it stands. I'm probably not going to change the speaker, but I might if there's enough room. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this next part of the video, where I have now fitted the TTS decoder to my Class 31. Which turned out to be surprisingly difficult. So I'll take off the body of the loco and you can see where I had to fit it. The body is not fixed yet, so I can just lift it off and I'll just tip it over like that. Hopefully you can see inside the body a little. I can't remove the body completely because it's wired permanently to the chassis, because all the lighting at this end and this end were shot, and I replaced the parts with as many bits as I could get from Hornby, but because some of these are broken as well, this is one of the fixings here, and there's another one up there. Neither of them work. The screws have just been put in so hard that the plastic has shattered and the inserts have come out. These two at this end just about work. That one's okay. The one at the top, the plastic is cracked and the insert was loose, and I've actually fitted it back in with a small amount of super glue, and it seems to be holding, but don't hold your breath on that one. Okay, now there were several places I might have been able to fit the decoder. The one that is often recommended is under here. There's quite a big space under there, and the decoder would have gone across the chassis with the wires coming up here, and that would have fitted. Unfortunately, the TTS decoder is too thick to fit in that space. So there was the first problem I had. Couldn't fit it where I expected to fit it. Sorry, the camera is very awkwardly placed right next to my head, and I keep knocking my head on the tilt mechanism of the camera, so if it shakes I apologise. So what I tried to do was fit the decoder here, but that's completely impossible because there's not enough height here, and you can't get the body back on. So then I tried to fit it here with the wires around these, or this, electrolytic capacitor, which is part of Hornby's circuit. So I pushed it as far up there as I could with the wires going around it. Still too high. Just cannot get it, I've just knocked the camera again, cannot get it to actually let me put the body on. So what I've ended up doing, as you can see, is I've ended up fitting it to a piece of double-sided sticky pad almost off the end where there's the thinnest part of the decoder. The rest of the decoder now flaps about in the breeze, suspended on that. This is the speaker, which I've mounted as far that way as I can. I don't dare go any further because I need this little space to get wiring through. I did try then to fit the fan on top of the speaker, and that's what these little projections here are for, and I made a plate to go on the top. Unfortunately, that proved to be impossible as well, so I've cheated and I've actually taped the fan inside the top of the body. So I keep knocking the camera, it's so close to me, and I've got so little room to manoeuvre here so that I can try and show this to you, that it is giving me a lot of trouble. Anyway, that's where I've had to fit the decoder. I've used Hornby's original speaker. I did have to lengthen the wires a little. That's what this here is. These are the extra length wires coming out the back of the decoder. I have put sellotape over the decoder, as Hornby recommend, and then I've added an extra piece of black tape here because you could see the decoder through here. What I hope is that the sound comes out of the space around the fan and from these grills on the side. If I just tip this back the other way now, this grill here and the one the other side are see-through. They're not solid. So the sound should come out of there, and of course some of the sound will bounce down through under the speaker and come out under the loco. That was the theory. I'm pleased to say it has actually worked. It's not quite as loud as it was now, but I believed it was too loud anyway. I think nearly every loco that comes fitted with DCC, or every DCC decoder that you fit in a loco, ends up with the sound far too loud. Now, it's completely impossible to scale sound, but as the loco moves away from you, it should start to fade away in sound, not stay the same noise level wherever you are in the room. A difficult thing to achieve, but that's what I'm going to try and do on North Grove. So that's the best I can do for showing you how it all fits together. The next thing I'm going to do is put it back together, and we'll listen to the sound that I've got with it on the track. Okay, here we are again. I'll try not to bash the camera so many times this time. I'm going to operate the Class 31 now on North Grove. I'm not going to send it very far, but we'll get the sound going and you can see how it works. I'm going to operate it with this, which is actually my old, wrong button, beg your pardon, my old mobile phone, and I'm going to run the application which is JMRI's engine driver app. I have my PC, which is behind the camera, connected via a USB cable to my NCE USB board, which is connected in turn into the cab bus of my NCE SBE system, SB5 system, and that SB5 system is powering North Grove. The PC is running JMRI, and it contains a list of all the locos that I have allocated to North Grove. Currently there are only 2 of them, and it is broadcasting a Y server, a Y throttle server, I beg your pardon, on a Wi-Fi channel and port, and I am going to connect to that in order to operate the layout and in order to make the Class 31 sounds happen. So I'll try and hold this up here for a little while because it's hard work, and there's the app that I want, and I know that this is the one I need to connect to, and as usual I was a little too quick. Right, now it's connected, and you can see that it has an empty throttle. I get a bit of reflection on there, I'm trying not to. There we go, is that better? So if I click up here, touch up here, we can now see the locos. I've got Class 31 and a Class 66. I click on the Class 31 and it now brings me up all of the functions for the Class 31, which I programmed into JMRI. The throttle, which is my phone, has read all those over Wi-Fi, and it's given me a forward and a reverse button. It's given me a speed controller slider, 2 buttons to control speed steps in button pushes, this one for down, this one for up, and a list of all of the functions that are programmed. And as I touch those function buttons, things happen. So if I touch the sound one, the loco starts. I'm now going to put my arm down because I'm holding it up quite high, and I shall tell you what I'm going to press. But there you go, the loco is running. I can turn the lights on. I don't know if you'll be able to see these. But the lights are now on. I can turn the cab light on, both ends now. Again, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but they should be on. I don't know if the lighting in here is too bright for it. And I can play the various sounds. So I've got horn high low, I've got horn low high, I have horn high, horn low, and horn short low and short high. I have also door slam, driver getting in and out. I have a brake squeal, which is much too loud. I think the horns are quite good. I have a notch up button, which will leave it standing still but notch the diesel engine up. It's quite slow. and I can hit the idle button hopefully and take it back to idle again. I have another button that I can actually cause it to thrash. And back to idle. I have a compressor, which is probably still too loud. I have a fan, which is probably about the right sound. And with the engine not running, we'll stop the engine. I have the primer, which is what you would normally press before you start the engine. This is a pump that is pumping, purging air from the fuel lines. And that's how you normally start it, I think. We have flange squeal, which is a little loud. We have coupling sounds. And guard's whistle. We have a buffering sound. And the last one is cab light. I think there are a couple of others which are not really relevant to me. I think there's one which is the right away whistle or something, but I've not included them because the ones I've got all fitted. The reason I like using my phone is because you can see all of those, as you can see. I don't remember where they are, they just happen to be on my phone. This is not the phone I use, by the way. This is just a very old Samsung Galaxy Ace 2, which I used to use quite some time ago. The last sound that we've got, and I'll just stop the engine, is the Spirax valve, which is a valve that ensures that the air lines, which are air brake lines, have no moisture in them. It purges them of moisture. Purges is the wrong word. It releases moisture from a trap. It's too loud, it needs to be quieter. But you normally hear it running after a loco stops. It's normally running, I think, while the loco's moving, but you can hardly hear it. So there you have all the sounds. There's one that I didn't mention, and that is, what did I call it? Cold start. There we go. If I preset cold start, and then we use the primer. And we start the engine. So there is the repertoire of sounds that we get. I'm going to stop the sound for a minute. That's the repertoire of sounds that we get from the Hornby TTS Class 31 decoder, which I think are quite respectable. The problem with TTS, of course, is you can't play more than one sound at a time. So if I'm playing the primer and then I say, give me a door slam, the primer stops while I slam the door. doesn't keep going. Which is, I can live with it. You notice I didn't ever get that problem because I made sure that I ran one sound at a time when I was demonstrating it to you. So I don't think that that's too big a deal in general. But you can't have the compressor, for instance, and the fan going together. I turned the fan on while the compressor was on. I can turn the fan off. When it stops, the compressor comes up because I didn't turn the compressor off. But I can live with all that. What I'm not so happy about on their TTS decoders is the motor control. Now Hornby in their wisdom don't do what everybody else does. They don't follow the NMRA standard. Well, at least I think this is part of the standard, where you have normally an adjustment for the engine start point. That's the first speed step at which the loco will start to move, and then you have an engine midpoint and an engine a speed midpoint and a maximum speed, and you can set these to relative numbers within the 0 to 128 speed steps, 127. Hornby don't do that. They give you a very clever sounding thing called proportional integral differential motor control. I'm not going to say it's rubbish, but I am going to say I'm unimpressed. The one that I've got it set to is apparently the same as one of Hornby's other decoders, which is I can't remember which one it is. I don't know Hornby's decoders well. And there is another one. The second one just lets the loco take off like a scalded cat when you move it forward, whereas this one actually holds it back very considerably, and I prefer that. I prefer a loco that takes its time to get going, and I can then modify that a little with the settings of the acceleration and deceleration. So when I move the loco forward, I'm going to move this to speed step 10. Sorry, 20 is what I meant. The loco takes off quite slowly. I'll bring it back. Right, it's reversed. That's 20 speed steps, 21 speed steps. I've now set it to 0. That's very controllable. But if I set it to speed step 1, nothing happens. I have actually specified one click on there, speed step 1, and it hasn't happened. I need to go one more click before it will move. And now it's running at speed step 2. It should be adjustable so that you can make sure it goes at speed step 1. Hornby haven't allowed that. The other thing I wasn't impressed about was in this algorithm, which is the algorithm number 1 that they use for speed control, which is the one I've chosen. When I first ran it, the numbers weren't as specified, they were different, and it was as jerky as hell. It looked awful. It actually juddered along the track like this. It was terrible. I quickly changed a few the two numbers in the P and the I values, the proportion and integral. You can't change the differential, but the P and the I, and that improved it. And what I've discovered is the P you set to about 8. That seems to control how quickly the motor responds to things. I'm not absolutely sure of that. The I value you do not set high. If you set it too high, the loco will jerk. And indeed, I ran it into the buffer stop at the end of North Grove down there, gently, just to see how well the back EMF took over. And instead of it just going a bit faster trying to push the buffer stop out of the way, what it did was went as if it was revving up and down trying to push the buffer stop out of the way. That happens if you set the I value too high. But I'm not impressed by it anyway. It works and it's not terrible, but I prefer the old system where you've got total control. You can switch back EMF on and off, or you can specify at what step it works at. So if you specify it from cut out from 0, then it won't be on at all. But I do like a bit of back EMF because it helps if the loco gets sort of stuck against a point blade or something like that. It'll just push it through it. You don't get hesitations. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the loco backwards and forwards with the sound working. So start the engine. And I'll take it to the other side of the picture. And I'll bring it up again. Don't know why it does that sometimes. Multiple brake releases. I think that's pretty good. We'll do it a little bit more sedately. Another brake release. That is now crawling along at speed step 5. One, 3, 2. When I go to 1, it stops. That was me pushing it back down again. Yes, I don't know why it releases the brakes so readily and so often. Seems if you change the speed it will often release the brakes twice. I'll live with that because it's just a sound. Locos make all sorts of weird sounds, so I'll live with that. Now whether I've got the sound level right or not, I'm not sure, and I'm hoping that this video is going to help me tell, because when I listen to what I've just recorded I will be able to tell whether I think it's too loud. Just one other thing before I wind the video up, and that is I'm going to show you something else on the engine driver application. I'm going to shut down 31110. Driver leaves his cab. 31110 is going to sit there. He'll be in trouble because he sat across one of the points, blocking access to 2 other roads and most of the locos on shed. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release that loco so that I haven't got it anymore. I find this difficult. So click on there and release. Now I have no loco selected. What I'm going to do is select the other loco that I've got, which is a Bachmann Class 66 with Bachmann's own sound fitted, bought as that way. Pardon, missed it. Look how few functions there are on the Bachmann Class 66. Now that is a £200 loco with the sound fitted, and it's got far less functions on the sound. I'll put my arm down now. Far less sound functions than the TTS decoder. So although I don't like Hornby's speed control, motor control, I do give Hornby very high marks for value for money. I just think they need to be a little bit careful, and I will be fitting more TTS decoders for sure. But I just really want to say to Hornby, be careful that you don't overprice the TTS decoders. At the moment, well, when I bought this one, Hornby's price was $39.99, which I thought was perfect. It has already gone up in the couple of months since I purchased this to $41.99. If they push it up to 50 quid, then people are going to start saying, well, that's getting a bit too expensive. I can buy a Locksound Select, that's cheaper. That won't be much more expensive, and that's a real decoder. It's a basic decoder. I say it's a basic decoder. I'm not 100% sure that is where Locksound have placed it, where ESU have placed it. But I think it's only about 90 quid, 80 to 90 quid. Well, if there's only going to be a £30 difference between a Hornby decoder and an ESU decoder, then I'll go ESU. If you can keep it more like £50 to £60 difference, then I'll stick with Hornby TTS. So I'll leave you all to make up your own minds whether you like the sound of the Hornby TTS or not. As I say, I am certainly going to be using more of them. And it's very easy to use sound locos if you couple them with JMRI and use Y throttles. You don't have to use a phone, you can use a tablet if you wish, or you can use one of the big phones. You can use an iPhone 6 Plus. That'll make the throttle even bigger, but you can still hold it in your hand. Anyway, I'm going to wind this video up because I mustn't waffle on for too long, but I give Hornby 9.75 out of 10 for their decoder. They would have got 10 out of 10 for their decoder if it had conventional motor control. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll be back soon with probably my Class 56, which will be powered via a Zimo decoder and probably a bass reflex speaker inside. But that's for the next video. Bye for now.